Dear friends, this episode is on scientific terms which we come across in our daily life, such as electric transformer, fertilizer, freezing mixture, friction, gases, gamma rays, guided missile, horsepower, hydroponics, ICBM, that's internal intercontinental ballistic missile, interplanetary space incandescence. So let's start. This episode is brought to you by www.chemistrynotesinfo.com. First is electric transformer. It is a device used to decrease or increase voltage of current and is generally used when a current of high voltage has to be utilized for domestic purpose. Fertilizers. Fertilizers are different types of chemicals used to increase the productivity of land, such as calcium, sulfur phosphate, DAP, diammonium phosphate, urea, etc. Freezing mixture. A mixture of ice or common salt is known as freezing mixture. Friction. A force of resistance which comes into play when a body moves over a rough planet. Gas. Gas have a special property of indefinite compression and expansion and possess no definite shape as well as no definite volume. Gamma rays, most powerful rays radiated by radium or radioactive elements. Guided missile, a rocket with a guided system of radar that makes it possible to change in its course according to instructions. These changes in direction can also be guided by infrared heat-seeking devices or by completely self-contained interstitial spatial system that provide or that records every change in acceleration or direction. Horsepower. Horsepower is a unit of power in FPS system. 1 horsepower is equivalent to 746 watts. Horsepower is generally used to define power of machineries. Like in your home, if you have a tractor, then it's have a some horsepower, or if you have some engine, it's have some horsepower. Hydroponics. Hydroponics is the culture of plants without soil. So this technique going to be famous nowadays very well and on very large scales, in which plants are grown in water without soil. ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. Initially, boosters are used to get the missile off the ground and give it a very high speed. Then these have done their job and they fall away from the missile, and then next rocket stage takes over. Several stages of rocket feed either by liquid or solid fuel may be needed to get the missile to its target and to achieve very high speed. It is called ballistic because it follows a trajectory similar to that of a shell from a gun. To travel such vast distance, it must be capable of great speed estimated between 19,000 to 20,000 miles an hour and of ability to achieve a height of 600 miles or more. It is capable of traveling or traversing enormous distance, and some estimates have put its range between 5,000 to 10,000 miles. It gets its propulsion from a series of rackrels. So these missiles have the capability to travel very long distance. Interplanetary space is the boundaryless or boundless expansion of space between the planets. Spaceships will have to cross this expanse of space by making use of the sun's attraction or struggling against it to avoid collision against wandering meteors and swarm of asteroids. Incandescence. When an electric current is passed through a filament of high resistance, sufficient heat is produced to make it white hot, and at this high temperature the filament begins to emit light. This process is known as incandescence. Generally, we have incandescence bulb in our home which contain incandescence filament. Thank you to listening this episode. If you find this episode interesting, please follow us and do share this podcast with your friend. Also, not forget to visit our website www.chemistrynotesinfo.com to learn many interesting science and chemistry terminologies and getting knowledge about science and chemistry.